Hey there, it's Kate from Coastal Drone, and today I wanted to walk through what the process looks like for foreign pilots looking to operate drones or RPAS in Canada. And as you may know, if you've arrived at this from our foreign pilot blog on this topic, you need to submit an SFOC application, a Special Flight Operations Certificate application. So that's what this document is, and this is a great place to start because sometimes it takes a little while for it to work its way to the top of the pile to get reviewed by Transport Canada. So you will first complete this application, submit it to Transport Canada, complete your ground school, that's TP 15263 compliant, and we'll look at that shortly. And then you'll be completing this checklist, which is the next document that we're going to review. But first, let's take a look at this one and what all these different sections mean. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward. Legal name of applicant, so that would be you. Trade name, if you're going to be operating under a company name while you're here doing business as something else. We'll put your address, city, province, territory, country, postal code as applicable for where you are. Principal place of business as from the applicant, so even if you're not doing the flying for work, if you just identify your home location, that's what will go here. A telephone number that they can contact you at, an email as well, and they may do that, so make sure that it's typed correctly, it's in there properly so that they can get a hold of you. Business incorporated if applicable, so if you're coming into Canada as an organization, as a business, and going to be operating, then fill this section out if you are incorporated. Then this section is if this is your first SFOC application, then you will say yes. If it's no, then you'll enter in whatever your previous SFOC number was, and that usually starts with ATS and then a number. It could also be something that starts with 18, 17, or 19, and even now 20 because it's the last two digits of the year. The next thing that we're going to do, the type of SFOC, this one's pretty straightforward, foreign pilot or operator. And then the purpose of the operation. So in the space provided, and it will shrink if you keep typing, outline why it is that you want to do your flying. If it's just for holiday photos, you can put that in there. If it's something that you're doing as part of a large contract with National Geographic or something, you could put that information in there. Proposed period of operations, you can put as long or as short of a time frame in here as you would like. I don't think that we'll see these SFOCs issued for more than a year if it is that long, but it'd be pretty straightforward to reapply if you're going to be here for longer than that. And you'll just need to enter in those dates and do, to the best of your knowledge, what dates you're planning on flying. And then locations of the proposed operation. If it's something where you know you're flying from one specific spot or at one specific location, that's great. Put that in there. If it's all of Canada, then you can put that in there. The reason why this is being asked is because in Canada there's two different certifications that exist, and these aren't something that as a foreign operator you're able to qualify for, but it is how operations are kind of divided out within Canada. So if your operations are outside of controlled airspace and away from bystanders or people, then they're considered basic, and they have to be away from airports and heliports as well. If that's the case, if all of your flying is going to be taking place in those basic environments, then it removes another requirement from you. So be as specific as you can with this location or locations, but your inspector, the Transport Canada inspector that gets assigned to this, may have some more questions for you regardless. If it is something where you're going to be flying in controlled airspace or close to airports or need to fly over people or very close to people with drones that are approved to do that, then you'll want to be specifying that in here, and there's going to be an additional requirement for you known as a flight review that you'll need to do when you're here in Canada, and that's with one of the Transport Canada designated flight reviewers. We're all across the country, and it's an in-person flight assessment. So we take a look at your procedures and your knowledge and how you fly the drone and make sure that you're going to be safe. If that's something that it looks like you're going to have to do, then there's lots of information on this on our YouTube channel as well as on our blog, and you can always reach out to me with questions as well. So that's why the locations information is super important. This next section is the person responsible for the RPAS operation. If you're coming here on holidays with your family and it's just you bringing your drone, then these next 3 people will probably all be you, the person that's responsible for the operation, the pilot that's responsible for the operation, and the person responsible for maintenance. And that's fine. You can put your information in 3 times, or you can write same as above, same as above. If it is a larger organization that's coordinating things, then you might have different people that are doing these different jobs, and that's totally fine. You can fill in the right people as required in there, but it's totally fine as well if it's just you. And now we're on to page 2 of 2. So here you're going to list the types of RPAS that you're flying. So for example, you could put DJI Mavic Pro 2. If you don't have a registration number to fill in that second column, don't worry about it. If your drone isn't registered in your country of origin, that's fine. But it just has a space for that if it exists. Might be helpful as well if it's just a digit or a set of digits to include what country it's registered in as well. When you fly in Canada, what you'll be asked to do is write the SFOC application number on your RPAS while you're here. So they'll provide more, they as in Transport Canada will provide more information on that in the process of approving you to fly. They've got lots of space if you're going to fly more than one drone, but don't feel like you need to. Complete names of the pilots and the certificate number. Same kind of thing with the certificate number as with the registration. If you don't have a pilot certificate in your country of origin, don't worry about filling anything in there, but do put your name or the names of all the pilots that will be flying the drone. And same thing with the visual observer. In Canada, visual observers are not necessary, but they are recommended. They can't be doing their job while operating a moving vehicle, but you'll want to maybe have someone on site to help with bystanders or to deal with just keeping an eye on the drone in more complex areas or something like that. So if you're going to employ a visual observer or have someone there on site with you, then go ahead and put that in on here. If not, then don't worry about it. And they don't have to have a pilot certificate number, but it's just a spot there to do that. And we're almost at the end. Then you're going to put your name in block letters. So just type it in or print it if you're doing this by hand. Date, and then sign. And then the rest of it is up to Transport Canada. So don't worry about filling in any of these sections. And then what you'll do is send this completed form to this email address. And then it will get divvied out to the Transport Canada inspectors that review SFOC applications. And you'll work your way to the top of the pile, and then you'll get a response back. What will happen at that point is you will receive this. And this is a checklist for your application. So these sections, these blocks up here at the top, don't worry about completing any of that. This is all for Transport Canada to fill in. So you can ignore this section and just jump right down to A, B, and C. So here, the first one there, A, SFOC application form is completed, properly filled out and signed. Yes, that's done. That's the form that we just looked at. And then general requirements for basic and advanced operations. So here we just start working through, and you want to provide Transport Canada with all these documents. It may be something where you choose to open up a separate word processing document and just list like item B2 is here. Here's the photo copy of my valid passport, or of all the people that are detailed on that SFOC application form. B3, here's proof of my completed schooling. So this is what I was mentioning, that TP 15263 training. So you are required as a foreign pilot, because there's no way for you to write our knowledge tests at this point to show that you meet the knowledge requirements. That TP 15263 training is just basically listing what the training needs to be. And so for most schools in Canada, that will be called a ground school, and that one of the requirements is that it needs to be 20 hours long. So you do need to complete that training and provide a completion certificate. For our training, when you complete our ground school that's 20 hours long, it automatically spits out a certificate for you so that you can use that right away as soon as you reach 100% completion. And then you'll just go through in adding all of these registration things, all of these items. So then number 5 here is confirmation that CARs, and then it lists a bunch, have been read, reviewed, and are understood. CARs are Canadian Aviation Regulations. If you just Google CARs, you will not get the thing that you're looking for. Instead, Google CARs, Transport Canada, or just click on the link here, and it'll take you through to the government website where all the regulations are listed. So you want to go there, read through those regulations, make sure you're familiar with them. They should also have been covered in your ground school. Then you have to confirm that the RPAS has not been modified, or describe it in a lot of detail if it's something that is home built, like a kit you've made yourself. And then in Canada, there's a few documents that are mandated, that are required. So that's a site survey and normal and emergency procedures. So those are detailed in the CARs, CAR 901.27, CAR 901.23, and then you confirm that there's an emergency contingency plan in place. So make sure you're familiar with our emergency phone numbers here, 911, or something maybe local. That makes more sense. So let's take a look at these regulations, because there's some key things in there that I want to point out. So I've already brought this one up. Just by clicking that link, it takes you here. It just takes a second to load, so I tried to avoid that. So for procedures, it says that you need normal operating procedures and emergency procedures. So your normal operating procedures are your pre-flight, takeoff, launch, approach, landing, and recovery procedures. And these would be like your checklists, like your normal checklists that you would use. And then emergency procedures, you need to have something in place to deal with these situations that could occur. So control station failure, equipment failure, failure of the RPA, loss of command and control link, flyaway, and flight termination. So there's a lot that can go into these. They don't have to be very in-depth, but they should be something that you have thought of and have put something down on paper so that in the stress of a situation, you know, for example, if you have a flyaway, who is it that you're going to contact? What phone number is that? That kind of thing. So want to make sure you have something like this. If this isn't something that you have already or that you're very familiar with, Coastal Drone also offers an SOP guide. It's fairly inexpensive. It's $25. You can purchase it through our learning management system, and it'll walk you through the requirements of the normal operating procedures, emergency procedures, and the site survey, which is the next one that we're going to look at. So the site survey has a set of requirements, and this is essentially a pre-flight site check. I have a whole video on site surveys on our YouTube channel, probably worth a watch. It points to a lot of resources where you can get this information. But essentially, a lot of these items can be done in advance of your flight to scope out the area that you're planning on flying in to make sure that it's going to be safe to operate in. And then some of the things you need to check once you're on site, because sometimes looking at like Google Earth does not help you determining the location and height of obstacles. It's a lot easier done once you're on site. But that is something that needs to be documented before you go flying. As well, I want to point out this these pre-flight requirements, CAR 901.28. This should be something that you work into your pre-flight checklists. So make sure you have something on there that says that you've confirmed that there's a sufficient amount of fuel or energy, like battery life, for the safe completion of the flight. It doesn't have to be full battery, it just has to be sufficient for the safe completion. Ensure that each crew member has been briefed on the duties that they're expected to perform, and also any emergency equipment that exists and how to operate it. And then you're also required to determine the maximum safe distance from you that the drone can go without endangering aviation or any individual's safety. So make sure you work those into your checklist at some point, particularly if you're going to be doing a flight review, because these are things that the flight reviewer will check for to make sure that they exist in your checklists. And that's something that that SOP guide will help you with as well. Okay, now we're back here, back to your checklist. If licenses exist or certificates exist for the people that you have listed on your application form, then you can go ahead and list them there, provide those permits. Have a copy of your maintenance and serviceability. Typically this comes right from the aircraft manual, or if nothing exists, you can make something up that makes sense for your operations. It might be that you do extensive pre and post flight checks and do a more of a overhaul check, maybe once every 6 months or once every year, depending on how much you fly. Confirm that the RPAS will be operated in weather conditions that are in accordance with what's here. So let's take a look at this one. I'll show you how it loads and why I preloaded the other one. Because this is the entire document of Canadian aviation regulations. The drone rules just fall into part 9, but there's 8 other parts that are loading right now as well. So it takes a little while. So the minimum weather conditions, you cannot operate your aircraft unless it's done in accordance with what the manufacturer says that you can do. Sorry, just skipped ahead there. And you have to be able to see the aircraft at all times. So you can't fly in cloud, you can't fly in fog. If it's pouring rain and your drone's not approved to fly in precipitation, then that's not something that you can do. Okay. And then this one says that you will operate the aircraft with regard to separation and collision avoidance. So read through these regulations as well. They would have been ones that came up when you read with these ones above. And then if you are going to do advanced operations, so again, you're flying in controlled airspace, close to airports, then there's a few other requirements because those are higher risk situations. Then you will need to show proof of conducting a flight review. And there's more detail on that on our YouTube channel and blog, and you can always get in touch with me directly. We have a network of flight reviewers from coast to coast to coast in Canada, so chances are if you're landing in any of the major cities when you arrive, we can have a flight review organized for you when you get there, weather permitting. And then a description of how you're going to coordinate with air traffic control. That's something we can help you work through as well. And then a confirmation that you've read the advanced operation regulations. So a few more things. You can expect flight reviews to run in anywhere between like $200 and $400 depending on who you do those with. Ours are $250 and include an online preparation course so that you know a bit more of what to expect before you show up. And then that is your checklist, and this is linked in the notes here, and I'll make sure that it's linked wherever this video is available, both the application and the checklist, so that you can complete them right away. Because if you can give Transport Canada all the information that they need straight away, then it makes it so that they can process things a little bit faster. So that's a quick summary of what all these blocks are on both the SFOC application form itself and the checklist that they're going to be looking for. I hope that that helps to clarify. If you have any questions, you can always get in touch with us at info@coastaldrone.co. I hope that makes flying in Canada a little bit less daunting. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to hear them. Thanks so much.